What the study says.
Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this. It's World War II, peak innovation time, right? People are scrambling for any advantage. Now picture a missile flying towards its target, but guiding it inside the nose cone is a pigeon. I mean, it sounds completely out there, doesn't it?
It really, really does. And that's the story we're digging into today. It comes from a paper by, well, a giant in psychology, B.F. Skinner.
Oh, the B.F. Skinner. Okay.
Yep, the very same. The paper's called Pigeons and a Pelican, and it covers this wartime research project, officially Project Pigeon, which later became ORCON.
ORCON.
Yeah, stands for Organic Control. Basically, pigeon-guided missiles.
Wow. Okay, so our mission here is to get past the, let's face it, the sheer weirdness of that image, a bird steering a bomb, and figure out what was actually going on.
Exactly. What did this seemingly crackpot idea really teach us about behavior? About science on the edge?
And maybe how sometimes the strangest paths lead to, well, unexpected places.
Fundamentally, the idea wasn't totally illogical. It was about harnessing animal senses, which are often way sharper than ours, for, practical tasks.
Like missile guidance.
Precisely. Think about a hawk's eyesight or a dog's tracking ability. Could you channel that? That was the question.
And the context was pretty grim, right? This started around 1939.
Yeah. Events like the bombing of Warsaw showed how dangerous aircraft had become. Defenses needed to catch up. So Project Pigeon was initially looking for a way to make missiles reliably home on planes.
Though it shifted later.
It did, yeah. Later, the focus moved more towards air-to-ground targets.
And this missile? The Pelican. Why Pelican?
Apparently the name came from the design. It needed a lot of space inside for the guidance gear, though a pigeon setup.
Right.
Which left less room for the actual explosive. So someone thought it was like a pelican's beak, big pouch, maybe less substance behind it.
Yeah.
A bit harsh, perhaps.
Okay, I get it. So the million-dollar question. How did the pigeon actually steer the thing?
Right. So it all came down to conditioning. Skinner's territory. They trained pigeons using food rewards operant conditioning to peck at a target image.
An image projected onto a screen.
Exactly. Projected onto a small screen right in front of the pigeon, which was held comfortably in a harness inside the missile's nose.
And the pecking did what?
The pecking controlled the missile's flight. If the pigeon pecked the center of the target image, the missile flew straight. If the target drifted off center on the screen, the pigeon would peck that new spot.
And that sent a signal.
Yes. Pecking left moved the controls left, pecking up moved them up, and so on. The pigeon's pecks translated into electrical signals for the missile's steering fins.
Incredible. But one pigeon seems risky.
They thought of that. That's where it gets even more wild. They proposed using 3 pigeons.
3?
Each with its own screen, all looking at the same target scene. Sort of triple redundancy.
Like a committee of pigeons?
Pretty much. A majority rule system. If 2 pigeons agreed on the target's position by pucking similarly, their signal would guide the missile.
What about the third one, if it disagreed?
Well, Skinner even mentioned exploring ideas, though maybe not fully implemented, to perhaps discourage the dissenting pigeon. Maybe a mild negative consequence if it was consistently wrong.
Wow, okay. Talk about quality control.
It shows how seriously they took the reliability aspect, despite the bizarre premise. And here's the kicker. The pigeons were actually good at it.
Really?
Surprisingly good. They found pigeons could recognize patterns, track moving targets really well, and crucially, their trained behavior held up.
Even under stress.
Yeah, even with simulated vibrations, loud noises, changing temperatures conditions meant to mimic a missile flight.
Yeah.
The conditioning was robust.
So the science worked, but convincing people, that must have been tough.
Oh, absolutely. That was the real battle. Skinner pitched it multiple times, faced rejection. He'd do these demonstrations with simulators, showing pigeons tracking targets perfectly.
Yeah.
But the image, a live bird inside a weapon, it just seemed too fantastic, too unreliable for many scientists and military officials used to dealing with wires and gyroscopes.
There was one key demonstration that went badly, wasn't there?
Yes. Skinner wrote about it. The lighting on the target image was apparently very poor, hard to see. Then a scientist looking on got curious and actually blocked the projector light for a moment.
Oh, no.
The pigeon naturally stopped pecking because the target vanished. As soon as the light came back, it went right back to tracking perfectly. But the damage was done.
The impression was flaky.
Exactly. The committee saw that interruption and concluded it was just utterly fantastic, too prone to failure, even though the pigeon technically performed its task when it could. Perception trumped the actual performance.
So Project Pigeon got canceled.
The military project, yes. But the research itself, it morphed into Orcon organic control. The focus shifted away from weapons and toward the fundamental science.
Understanding how to control behavior, basically.
Precisely. And Skinner, looking back, saw this whole period as incredibly valuable, not for the military outcome, but for the science.
How so?
Because it forced them to develop incredibly rigorous methods. They had to precisely control the environment, measure behavior quantitatively, stuff that really pushed experimental psychology forward.
So the discipline needed for pigeon guidance actually advanced the whole field.
Absolutely. That deep dive into operant conditioning, understanding how reliable and complex learned behavior could be, directly fed into his later, more famous work, things like teaching machines, programmed instruction.
Which are all about breaking down learning into small, reinforced steps.
Just like training the pigeons.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the missile project failed, but the scientific journey, hugely productive.
It's amazing. This totally bizarre idea, born from wartime pressure, ends up pushing the frontiers of psychology.
It really is. It failed in its original mission, but succeeded in ways they probably never imagined it at the start.
So the thought to leave you with is this. What does this strange detour through history tell us? How often do these out there ideas, the ones people might initially laugh at, actually end up driving knowledge forward in really profound, unexpected ways, even if they don't hit their original target?